Hey everyone, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack your 2026 Level 2 Economics roadmap for Rutherford College. If you've ever actually wondered who really pulls the strings of a country's wealth or why things just cost what they do, well, you are in exactly the right place. We're not just going to be staring at abstract graphs here. We are going to explore how the entire New Zealand economy operates. We'll see how massive economic decisions ripple out to affect everyday individuals, local businesses, and really our wider community. So let's get into it.
Now, to really succeed here, we've got to adopt the Rutherford College motto before we even look at a single data point, tohea, to strive for personal excellence. Look, mastering economics is a serious mental workout. It's all about developing your critical thinking, your analytical chops, and your decision-making skills. Striving for excellence means building an unbreakable foundation. Not just to absolutely crush your NCEA assessments, though we definitely want that, but to prime your brain for Level 3 economics and really any future tertiary study you might do in business, finance, or anything related. This is literally where that mastery begins.
Here's how we're breaking it down. Section 1, Welcome to Macroeconomics. Section 2, Decoding the Job Market. Section 3, The Reality of Inflation. Section 4, Government Action and Policy. Section 5, New Zealand and Global Trade. And finally, Section 6, Mastering the NCEA Assessments.
So, across the year, this journey is mapped out pretty logically. Term 1 looks inward at the internal economy and our core models. Term 2 heats up with inflation and the specific levers the government pulls to control it. Term 3 expands our view outward to global trade expansion. And finally, Term 4 is all about consolidation and those NCEA exams. Every single term is a crucial mile marker on this roadmap.
All right, moving into Section 1. Welcome to Macroeconomics, the foundation.
Right out of the gate in February, your mission is to master these critical economic models. We're talking frameworks like the Production Possibility Curve, or PPC, the circular flow of the economy, and aggregate demand and aggregate supply, usually just called AD/AS. Now, why start with this whole alphabet soup? Well, because the real world is incredibly messy. These models are basically your analytical blueprints. They simplify the total chaos of millions of buyers and sellers interacting every single day, which allows you to clearly predict what's going to happen next. They give you the foundation of vocabulary you absolutely need for everything else we're going to cover.
Next up, Section 2, Decoding the Job Market, Real-World Impacts.
So, what actually happens when jobs disappear? Look, we aren't just shifting lines around on a graph here. We're measuring human livelihoods. This unit bridges that gap from theory right into the real world. Think about it. When a major local factory shuts its doors, how does that sudden loss of income ripple through the local cafes, the retail stores, and the broader community? We're going to examine the harsh, everyday consequences of these major macroeconomic shifts.
Throughout Term 1, your knowledge is going to build systematically. Step 1, you lock down those key definitions. Step 2, you actively construct the labor market model itself. Step 3, we identify the specific, distinct types of unemployment that can plague an economy. And Step 4, this all culminates in a highly focused group research project. You'll literally translate raw economic theory into tangible, real-world impacts to prep for your in-class NCEA internal write-up. It's a really structured, step-by-step progression to complete understanding.
Moving on to Section 3, The Reality of Inflation, the Invisible Tax.
Okay, have you ever wondered why your favorite bakery pie costs like 20% more this year than last year? Well, in Term 2, you're going to investigate the actual mechanics behind that invisible tax. We'll explore extreme historical scenarios like hyperinflation, and we'll dive into the quantity theory of money, often just called QTOM. That theory explains exactly how printing too much cash mathematically devalues it. Plus, you'll figure out the difference between just, a single expensive lunch and actual economy-wide inflation.
Now, there are generally two main culprits driving these relentless price hikes across the economy. First up is demand pull inflation. Picture a massive crowd of people with entirely too much money fiercely fighting over way too few goods on the shelves. Contrasted directly with that is cost push inflation. This is where the physical cost of actually producing the goods, like say imported fuel or raw materials, suddenly skyrockets. That forces businesses to aggressively raise their prices just to survive. Honestly, mastering both of these models is a game changer. It allows you to watch the evening news and pinpoint exactly what is draining the country's wallets at any given moment.
All right, Section 4, Government Action and Policy, the Control Room.
Once you've diagnosed those deeply rooted problems of unemployment and inflation, well, it's time to pull the levers of power. You basically have two main tools in this control room. First is monetary policy, handled by the Reserve Bank in weeks 6 and 7. They deliberately manipulate the money supply and interest rates to either aggressively cool down or heat up the economy. Then in week 8, there's fiscal policy. This is how the government itself directly uses taxation and its own massive spending levels to manually steer the ship. You're going to learn exactly which lever to pull and under what specific economic conditions you need to pull it.
And all of this intense policy analysis leads right up to a massive high-stakes deadline. Right as week 1 of term 3 kicks off, your comprehensive government policy internal assessment is due at exactly 4 p.m. on Friday, July 24th. This is the critical moment where you formally finalize your domestic economic analysis right before we pivot to look permanently overseas. Seriously, you'll want to mark that date on your wall right now.
That brings us to Section 5, New Zealand and Global Trade, the External World. Because New Zealand is a small island nation, kind of isolated at the bottom of the world, we survive solely on trade, exporting our milk and logs and importing our cars and electronics. You're going to deeply investigate our vital yet fragile place in the global market by mastering a specific sequence of models in Term 3. You'll analyze current free trade agreements, learn how to officially measure trade via the current account, meticulously track currency values with the foreign exchange model, and finally, master the complex one-country and two-country trade models. It perfectly scales your understanding of how international money and goods rapidly flow back and forth across our borders.
And finally, Section 6, Mastering the NCEA Assessments, the final boss battle.
When Term 4 arrives, a massive shift happens. Absolutely zero new content is introduced. The entire month of October is completely dedicated to ruthless, focused revision through past papers. This is your muscle-building phase. It ensures those critical thinking skills you've spent the entire year developing are incredibly razor-sharp. It primes you for the intense external NCEA exams and, honestly, gives you a huge analytical advantage for any future tertiary study. Because ultimately, Level 2 economics isn't just about memorizing graphs to tick off a box for credits. It's about confidently pulling back the curtain on the real world. You now know the roadmap. You're going to understand exactly why your money buys less today than yesterday, why local jobs suddenly disappear, and how complex global trade agreements directly dictate our local reality. The analytical tools to completely decode the global economy are being handed directly to you this year. So the only question left is, once you see how the machine actually works, how are you going to use it to your absolute advantage?